All right, lesson 33, part 1 is fraction multiplication. Go ahead and write the title into your notes and push play when you're ready to begin. And I'm giving a shout out to Mr. Romo's class, who may be watching this one too. Hi guys, I hope you enjoy the lesson. Push play when you're ready to begin the lesson. Okay, fraction multiplication is kind of tricky because, as you have figured out by now, fractions are a form of division. And so in some cases we're multiplying division with fractions, so it can get kind of confusing. But I have some ways to help it make sense for you and to simplify the process for you. And once we get into it, I think you'll feel really comfortable with it. In fact, most of the time, people like fraction multiplication and division better than having to do fraction, addition, and subtraction. And I think it's easier too, once you learn the steps. But before I give you all the easy steps, or before I make that available to you, I want you to know what's going on. So let's start here. And you're going to want to copy this stuff down. Let's say I have 1/3, and I want to multiply that times 3. Remember that multiplication is repeated addition, so really what I'm saying is that is 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3. 1/3 plus itself 3 times. That's what multiplication is, repeated addition. In picture form, it looks like this. We have 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3, all put together, which would be 1, 2, 3 thirds, and 3 divides into 3 exactly 1 time, so it would be 1 whole pizza. So if I took 1/3 of this pizza, 1/3 of this pizza, and 1/3 of this pizza and ate it, I basically ate 1 pizza, didn't I? All right, so if you if you're multiplying a fraction by a whole number, you really are just adding it to itself repeatedly. But sometimes we get something like this. Let's take the same idea. 1/3 times 1/3. This is saying if I ate a third of a piece of pizza. Here's what this is saying, and this is what I said earlier, that we're multiplying division almost, and it can get a little bit confusing, but just hang with me a little bit, and hopefully I can help it make a little bit of sense. So this would be like saying, I have a pizza that is cut into thirds, and I'm taking this 1/3 of a piece. That's this part right here. I have a third of a piece. And of that third of a piece, I can only eat 1/3 of it. So I'm going to split it into 3 equal pieces, and I can only eat a third of the third. Well, if I had cut this all up too, then that is 1/9. I'm eating 1/9 of the pizza. 1 out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's what this is saying. You're getting to eat 1/3 of the third. And so that's how the multiplication works out. Now I'm going to do something. So these are the two things that are going on with multiplication. If it's a whole number, we're just adding itself to itself that many times. But if it's a fraction, this is a division problem really. So we're kind of dividing the multiplication to itself over and over. This is what's happening when it's that. So, but there's some really easy steps that'll help us. And so I'm going to kind of lead you into those steps. So hang on just a second with me. Okay, so let's see if we can discover when we're dealing with, because I think that when it was the whole number here, that was okay, that made sense to your brain. But this part probably is a tough thing for your brain to wrap around. So let's help your brain figure out the pattern that's going on here. We're going to look at half of a half. What that looks like is, if I take a pizza and I take half of the pizza and I cut it in half and I get to eat half of that half, that is basically eating 1 out of 4. So half of a half is 1/4. I'm going to change these around. Okay, I changed those around. I wanted your brain to see these right next to each other. Now let's go to the next one. Let's do a third of a third, or a third of a third. That's saying if I have a pizza and I have it cut into thirds, and I can only take one of those thirds, because this is saying here, you get 1/3 of a piece of pizza, and you're going to divide that into thirds. You're going to split that into thirds, and you get to eat one of those. Well, that's 1 out of, there were 3 here, 1, 2, 3 will be here, so that's 6, and then 9, 1 out of 9. So if you divide 1/3, or if you get to eat 1/3 of 1/3, that's 1/9. You notice I'm kind of confusing my divide and multiply here because we're multiplying a division problem, and so this is where the two get tricky, but it's really easy once you learn the steps. Next one, let's look at 1/4 times 1/4. What's that saying? It's saying out of 1/4, I'm going to, so here's my 1/4 of a piece, I'm going to split it into another 1/4. I get 1 out of the 4 pieces if I split that up into 4s. Well, that's 1 out of, if this is 4 pieces, this is 4 pieces, this is 4 pieces, and this is 4 pieces, that's 16. So 1 out of 16 pieces. You might be starting to see a trend here. Let's do one more, and then we're going to look at the pattern here. If I have 1/5 times 1/5, that means I'm taking a pizza that is cut into 5 equal pieces. Pretend those are equal. They're a little off, sorry. And I take one of those fifths, and I'm going to split it into 5 equal pieces, because I only get to eat one of those, 1 out of 5. That's 1 out of, and this is split into 5 pieces, so that would be split into 5. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. 25. Okay, so when I'm multiplying these together all the way through, take a look what happens here. 1, 1, and 1. 2, 2, and 4. What can I do to these two to get 4? 2 times 2 is 4, or 2 plus 2. Let's see what happens on the next one. 1 across to 1 is 1. 3 across to 3 is 9. That's 3 times 3. 1 across to 1 is 1. 4 across to 4 is 16. That's 4 times 4. 1 across to 1 is 1, and 5 across to 5 is 25. So it looks like we're just multiplying straight across, which is way easier than addition, isn't it? Because in addition we had to get a common denominator. And here, yes, technically we have a common denominator. But in multiplication, we don't need that. And that's really, really nice thing to have to skip. So we just multiply straight across. And so there's some very easy steps now that you can kind of see what's going on, why we're multiplying straight across, that we're piecing things apart. Then let's go ahead and put the steps together now. All right, and the first thing I want you to do is to write down these steps into your notes. As you know, you get to use your notes on your test, and having these steps in there in case you forget is going to be really important. So write these down, push play when you're ready to begin. Okay, so you have these written down into your notes. It's important that you have them. We're going to do a series of we-dos, and I'm going to show this to you in the 3 different ways you might see this math so that you can do all of it. Let's start with this one. We're going to go back to the whole number. Let's say we have 2/5 times 10. Now, again, at the beginning of this lesson, I said, well, that's just like doing 2/5 plus 2/5 plus 2/5 plus 2/5 plus 2/5 plus 2/5 10 times. But we really don't feel like doing that, because isn't that a lot? It's kind of time consuming. And so we already know that the shortcut to repeated addition is multiplication. So we're going to just go ahead and multiply it. So here's the steps. We use these steps to do it. Change them all to fractions. Well, 2/5 is already a fraction, but 10 is not. Really easy to change a whole number to a fraction, though, because if we just stick a 1 under him, 1 divides into 10 exactly 10 times. I have not changed that number. He's the same number. So 1 into 10, 10 times. Oh, that doesn't work. Okay, so now I have 2 fractions. I have 2/5 times 10 over 1. Now we're on step 2, cross reduce. What cross-reduce means, and we do this simply to make these numbers nice and small. If we can make these numbers nice and small, it just goes much, much faster, and we don't have to reduce so much on the other end. So what cross-reduce means is I get to check my crosses. In this case, the crosses here are 2 and 1. And it's just like reducing fractions. You just ask yourself, is there a number that goes into both of these evenly other than 1? No, there's not. There's just 1. But what about across here, 5 and 10? Is there a number that goes into both of these evenly? And there is. 5 goes into 5 evenly, and 5 goes into 10 evenly. So what we do is we say, well, 5 goes into 5 once, and 5 goes into 10 twice. Now, because we were fair on both sides, we didn't change these numbers really, but we're ready to go ahead and go to the next step. Next step, multiply straight across, just like we showed in the example before, in the slide before, that they just multiplied across. So we multiply straight across. 2 times 2 is 4. And 1 times 1 is 1. And the last step is to convert if necessary. If it's improper, make improper, and reduce if you can. So convert if necessary. Well, this is an improper fraction. This is an upside down snowman. So we would do 1 divided into 4, which of course is 4. Just like we did this number up here. When you put a 1 under it, you haven't changed the number. Well, there's a 1 under it, so he's just a 4. And your answer is 4. That's the answer. That's all you do. So it might kind of seem sort of too easy, easier than you thought. So let's look at another one. Okay, let's look at another example. We've got 3/4 times 1/3. That's 1/3 of 3/4. And I put in a picture over here for your brain. This is a pizza, the red pizza, cut into 4s. And we get 3 of those 4s. So I, in blue, marked 3 of those 4s off. And you're splitting this amount into 3 equal pieces, 1, 2, and you get to have 1 of those. So what we're trying to find is how much is that? And so when we do our answer and we go through these steps, that's what we're going to find out. So step 1, change them all to fractions. Well, that is a fraction, and so is that. That step's all done. Step 2, cross-reduce. Is there a number that goes into both 1 and 4? Other than 1? No. Is there a number that goes in evenly to both 3 and 3? Sure there is. 3 does, so let's do 3 into it. So we've got 3 goes into 3 once, and 3 divides into 3 once. Next step, multiply straight across. So we're going to multiply straight across. 1 times 1 is 1. And 4 times 1 is 4. So your answer would be 1/4. And so it kind of makes sense, right? Because if we had, I'm going to change this to white, if we had 3 pieces of 4s, and we divided it into 3 equal pieces, 1, 2, 3, isn't one of those pieces going to be one of the 4s? So that makes sense there. All right, let's look at another one. Okay, and here is our final we do. And the reason we have 3 we do's is because you're going to see this in all the 3 various ways. So it'll be a whole number or 2 fractions, or it could be mixed numbers. And I wanted to make sure you knew how to handle the mixed numbers before I threw those at you to do on your own. So we do the first step, change it all to fraction. Well, this is a mixed number. I need to change him back into an improper fraction so I can work with him again. And so we have to dig into our memory on how to do that. How did we change these into improper fraction? Oh, right, multiply, add, bring it to the side. So it's going to be 2 times 5 is 10 plus 1 is 11. So we just have to dig into our toolbox in our brain and use the tools that we have. Multiply, add, bring it to the side. 1 times 11 is 11, plus 4 more is 15. Okay, now both of them are fractions and I'm ready to move on. Cross-reduce. Is there a number that goes into both 11 and 11 on the crosses? Sure there is. 11 does. That's easy. Okay, so 11 goes into 11 once. 11 goes into 11 once. And how about the other cross, 5 and 15? Oh yeah, sure there is. 5 goes into 5 evenly, and it also goes into 15 evenly. So we'll do that one. 5 goes into 5 once, and 5 goes into 15 3 times. Now that I've cross-reduced as much as I can, I multiply straight across. 1 times 3 is 3. And 1 times 1 is 1. And finally, convert if you need to. I do need to. 1 divides into 3 exactly 3 times. So 2 1/5 times 1 4/11 is 3. That's the answer. All right, your turn, you do. And we don't get good at this until we try it several times. So you're probably you might mess up as you go through. It's okay to mess up, you know that by now. Give it a shot and push play when you are either stuck or when you have an answer to check it. Okay, so you either got to a point where you got stuck or you got all the way through to an answer, and we're going to check it, make sure you're checking. So we have 2 1/4 times 1/3. Step 1, change them all to fractions. Well, this is a fraction here, but this is not. Multiply, add, bring it to the side. So 2 times 4 is 8, plus 1 is 9. And then this 1/3 stays 1/3. Now they're both fractions. I can move to the next step, cross reduce. 1 and 4, nothing goes into both of those. But 3 and 9, 3 goes into both of those. 3 is into 3 once, and 3 is into 9 3 times. Next step, multiply straight across. Okay, 3 times 1 is 3. And 4 times 1 is 4. Okay, and finally convert, reduce. Convert, well, is this an upside down snowman? No, the small number is on top of the big number, so he's a proper snowman. He's good. Can I reduce? Is there a number that goes both into 3 and 4? No, that's as low as it's going to go. So that means that that's your answer. 3/4 is your final answer. If this is making pretty good sense to you, as long as you have these steps in front of you, you can go get the closure questions and show me that you get it. If you need to stop the video review, rewind back to somewhere so you can hear it a couple more times to let your brain wrap around it, go ahead and rewind. If that still doesn't help, make sure you come see me so we can do a couple of practice problems together and get your brain to grab onto it and understand it.